Now then, Tigers, how we doing? I hope we're doing well. Do you remember the mighty Hull City 10 years ago in the 15 to 16 season? Because I definitely do. It was one hell of a memorable season. Mainly because we did get promoted from an incredible playoff win. And I really do hope this season's going to be somewhat similar. And that's what we're kind of doing in this video. We're going to be comparing this season to Hull City 10 years ago. The way we're mainly going to be comparing it is, I guess, the table in terms of where Hull were in this position 10 years ago compared to where they are now. Also, I'm going to take a look at the squads, the players from 10 years ago and comparing them to now, where you really get to decide which squad you think's better between the squad 10 years ago and the squad we currently have right now. I think most of you will probably think the one from 10 years ago. And I don't think you'd be wrong. But hey, listen, maybe we've had improvements, even though it's been a very up and down journey since 10 years ago. Starting off, we're going to look at how the 15 to 16 season finished, because we did finish 4th place in just a very strong position in the playoffs. 83 points with a goal difference of 34. That I would have never have imagined. Never, because we're currently on a goal difference of 5. that is just ridiculous. 24 wins, 11 draws, 11 losses, 69 goals scored, 35 conceded. My God, we were both good on the attack and the defence, and I'm actually surprised we didn't get autos, to be honest. I know we were kind of hovering there for quite a while, or in a certain period of the season, because we were first place for good, must have been like a solid 10 games if I'm not mistaken, and then it kind of did drop a bit, and yeah, we just ended up being in a very strong position in the playoffs. Not that I'm complaining, because obviously we did win the playoff final, but just looking at this and compared to other teams, I mean, you've got Burnley obviously won the championship, followed by Middlesbrough finishing 2nd. You had Brighton, us, Derby County and Sheffield Wednesday in the playoffs. Sheffield Wednesday will be looking back at this thinking how close we were to Premier League football and how much we have gone downhill since then. Yep, you've gone very much downhill since then. I mean, even teams that were like below us, you had Ipswich, Cardiff, Brentford, Birmingham. Like there's some decent teams in there. I mean, well, obviously Brentford are a Prem side. You've got Ipswich, who are basically going to be a team that are just going to be going up and down from the Championship and Premier League. Cardiff currently in League One, but they're going to get promoted. And Birmingham, who are, well, just still a Championship team, to be honest. But there's probably going to be a point where they will get promoted. So far this season, of course, we've completed match day 39. Or, well, most teams have. I know that Ipswich still have a game in hand, and I'm pretty sure Portsmouth do as well, because their games have just been postponed twice. But yeah, where we are currently at the moment, obviously it's not as comfortable as it was probably 10 years ago. Because looking at this, you have us right now 3 points away from 7th place of Wrexham, who are on the same points as 6th place Southampton, and then 5 points away from 2nd place Middlesbrough. So it's kind of not too bad in a sense, which is kind of surprising because our form, as I've said before recently, it's not been great. Like, it definitely could be better, but looking at the last 8 games, we've won 4 and lost 4. Not bad, but when you're fighting for playoffs, you need that consistently good form, and that's really what we haven't had. Now, instantly when I look at this, the teams that I can see who basically would kind of be near this top 6 10 years ago, you'd have Derby County, Ipswich, Middlesbrough, and I don't think anyone else. Southampton, if I'm not mistaken, would have been in the Premier League at the time. Coventry might have actually been in League One, I generally cannot remember. Millwall, of course, they're in the Championship. When are Millwall not in the Championship? And then Wrexham would have actually been in the National League, or at least in non-league football. That is actually kind of scary to think about. Now here we have the comparison for match day 39 10 years ago, because instead of 5th place, we were 3rd. I mean, we were literally in a promotion race. That exactly is what it was, because as I said before, we were 1st place for quite a while and had that kind of slight drop off where Burnley and Middlesbrough were really picking up the form. 4 points away, but yet had the best goal difference at the time. He had Brighton, who were on the same points, who again were in that promotion race, which really isn't surprising. Sheffield Wednesday just behind, followed by Derby. And the thing is with Hull, especially with that season, looking where they are at this position, we really have to think that we actually didn't really lose that many games thinking of it. I mean, we lost 11 games from the 46 matches we played. Looking at us currently, we've lost 13 from the 39 we've played. So, clearly, well, I mean, obviously we were a far better defensive team. And looking at that, it really does make you think that, well, surely the squad must have had far more quality than 10 years on to now. And it probably does, in the sense that this season we've had a flipping transfer embargo, which obviously doesn't kind of help the cause in comparison to saying, oh, well, clearly this squad's a lot better from 10 years ago, because actually we're able to spend money on transfers and not literally just rely on loans and free agents. The 15-16 squad, it was quite something, I tell you what. There are a few iconic players. Some of these players have actually gone on to win European trophies as well, mainly being Andy Robertson and Harry Maguire. But yeah, starting off like the goalkeepers, you had Alan McGregor and Eldon Jakupovic. McGregor, if I'm not mistaken, played basically almost all of the season, but weirdly enough, like Eldon Jakupovic played in like the last part of the season. I can't remember why McGregor wasn't involved in that last part of the season. If someone could put it down in the comments, I'd really do appreciate it. I genuinely can't remember. It's that long ago since I can remember. But Jakupovic was one hell of a keeper in all fairness. I mean, had like a couple of decent stops, I think, if I remember, when we did win 3-0 against Derby in a playoff semi-final. I guess he wasn't really that busy when it came to the game in the playoff final against Sheffield Wednesday. It was more Westwood who was busy in goal because we were just having so many shots at Sheffield Wednesday. But yeah, the thing is with the goalkeepers, you can't really complain when you've got Alan McGregor and Eldon Jakupovic in goal. You compare that to Ivor Pandor, whose only real competition is Dylan Phillips. And Dylan Phillips is not someone that's really going to compete with Pandor, because you just know that Pandor is better, especially when Pandor's a better shot stopper. And Phillips, really, I don't think his distribution's any much better than Pandor. Maybe slightly at a stretch, but really not much of a difference. And then, yeah, I mean, outfield players, I mean, the defence, man, there's some good defenders in this squad. Moses Odubajo, what a player he was. Alex Bruce, I mean, arguably he was only there because of being Steve Bruce's son. No disrespect, though, because he did have quite a few decent games, if I'm not mistaken. You had Ryan Taylor, Curtis Davis, Hull City legend. As I said before, Harry Maguire. Michael Dawson, a very experienced centre-half. As I said before, again with Andy Robertson. Ahmed El Mohammadi, I think arguably a Hull City legend, let's be real. Brian Lennon and Josh Timon, who's currently at Swansea City. I don't really think he actually had much game time, if I'm not mistaken, when he was at Hull. I don't actually think he had any, to be honest. He wouldn't be at Derby without Hull, put it that way. And then, I tell you what, the midfield for me is when it really just gets good. This midfield is such... like at this point in the 15-16 season, it was arguably the best midfield in the Championship. Not arguably, it was the best midfield in the Championship. David Myler, Tom Huddleston, Robert Snodgrass, Sam Clucas, Jake Livermore, Sean Maloney, Mo Diame, Isaac Hayden, and then you've also got Nick Powell in there. That midfield is ridiculous. No wonder we were so good this season in the Championship. You could easily make rotations for players and it'd be absolutely fine who you rotate, because there's just another quality player you can put into the squad. Man, maybe that's what we're missing through this season, because the midfield really, we're relying really on Regan Slater, Amir Hatzimetovic and Tree. That's really it. Lunny's not bad, but not exactly the best. You got Toby Collier right now, who's just can't get fit at the moment, really. Kieran Dowell, who's, I guess he's more of a cam, but even still, he does play a bit central midfield position or a CDM. He's not really been that great. And then the strikers as well, I mean, Abel Hernandez, Chuba Akpom, Sonny Aluko, and Adama Diomande. I mean, you can't complain of that. I know Chuba Akpom wasn't really someone that... I don't really think he really played that much, if I'm being honest, when he was at Hull. He was just kind of... just one of them players you'd put on as a sub, just see if they can just see the game off, really. Abel Hernandez was the main striker. Sonia Luco kind of did play on the wing a bit sometimes, from what I can remember. Diamande as well was good to have to replace with Hernandez, of course. But yeah, man, what a squad. What a squad that was. That midfield, though, honestly, I can't get over that. That is an absolute joke of a midfield. Just generally, I'm not surprised we did that well that season with that midfield. And then comparing the outfield players to this season. Now, defence-wise, honestly, I feel like now it's not too bad. I think because when you kind of look back 10 years, you look at, like, I guess for us it was like iconic players. Because, again, they were achieving stuff actually before they came to Hull. Or they were at least achieving stuff after they were at Hull. And maybe some of these players will kind of be the same. Like Charlie Hughes is definitely going to achieve something in the future. That's definitely for sure. Maybe even Cody Drameh as well. Defence-wise, you look at Louis Coyle, Ryan Giles, Semi Ajayi, John Egan, Matty Jacob, Cody Drameh, Akinfenwa Mayo, James Furlong, James DeBayo, well, he barely plays, Paddy McNair, Stanley Ashby, and Cathal McCarthy. I've actually just realised that they have missed out Charlie Hughes on there. He's been put as I've just seen he's been put as a forward. ESPN have messed up there. With our defence, there's a good mix, really, of experienced players and younger players. So, really, it kind of does sort of match up well. I know, as I said before in the previous video, you'd have like a defence, maybe of Charlie Hughes and John Egan, and maybe you'd then have someone, I don't know, like flipping Cody Drameh at right back, and then Ryan Giles at left back, or, you know, put Louis Coyle instead of Drameh. Whatever you fancy. Looking back at it with the 15-16 season, really the defenders, they were more experienced, and especially they'd spent a lot more time at Hull City, whereas these players have most of them have only spent a max of one season, if not two, apart from Louis Coyle, who's spent quite a while there. Respect it, Louis. Respect it. You look at the midfield, it doesn't look too bad in all fairness, but it really, you can't, you look at the midfield from 10 years ago, this midfield has no chance, in my opinion. Like 10 years ago, that is literally prime. That is just prime. Like, you look at this one, John Lundstrom, Elliot Matarazzo, Amir Hatzimetovic, Darko Gyabi, Matt Crooks, Kieran Dowell, Regan Slater, Toby Collier, Farrell Brown's on there, but he's at the youth team, so is Nathan Tinsdale. It's a good mix. Again, like as I said before with the defenders, it's a good mix in terms of, again, mixing youth with experienced players. It's just more really the fact that all the other Hull midfielders that you had 10 years ago, they're all experienced. Like, for instance, Tom Huddleston, Jake Livermore. Those two in the midfield you'd be happy with every week. If one of them gets injured, you'd be happy to take on another experienced midfielder like David Myler. Even like for wingers, for instance, I know it's come up as forwards for this recent squad, but you'd have like Robert Snodgrass on the wing. You'd have sometimes you would have Sam Clucas on the wing, maybe. Or centre mid, I can't actually remember, to be honest, off the top of my head. But again, it was just great. You could actually rotate the squad with that. This you can, well, we can't really this season because all our players get bloody injured, which doesn't help. Yeah, nonetheless, it is great. Our up-front players, Liam Miller, Ollie McBurney, Mo Balumi, David Akintola, Yu Hirakawa, Joe Gelhart, Carl Joseph, Lewis Kumas. Just, again, a good mix of experienced and young players. It's pretty clear that the squad from 10 years ago is better than this one. But that doesn't mean to say that this one is not any good, because why do you think the 5th place? Maybe it's because you have to compare the managers between Steve Bruce and Sergei Yakirovich. Because once again, it really does depend on experience in English football. Steve Bruce has a lot of it. And especially when he came before Hull, he had it all. He was an experienced player as well in English football. I mean, everyone knows he played for flipping Manchester United. He's a legend there. Whereas Sergei Yakirovich, just again, more hanging around kind of Bosnian, Croatian, Turkish leagues. If you looked at, I guess, in terms of a managerial performance, you looked at who's done better out of Steve Bruce, Sergei Yakirovich. You have to go with Yakirovich. He's done a miles better job. With the squad he has, the transfer embargo he's been through, and the full-on injury list we've had this season, compared to Steve Bruce, who, yeah, alright, maybe there would have been a couple of injuries, but had a great squad depth and just great quality in general, was able to rotate his squad. Obviously, you know, they'd just come from the Premier League, looking to try and get back into promotion, whereas now, you know, we just survived a relegation in the previous season, and yet here we are in the blooming playoffs. Incredible. So there's something you can really credit from kind of like both sides in terms of 10 years ago. It was just an incredible squad. Really, they had to get back into the Premier League. It only seemed right, and thankfully they did. This season, it was all about just redeeming ourselves from such a terrible season, but nonetheless, still having an enjoyable watch at Hull actually fighting for playoffs, which is something you wouldn't have imagined in the previous season. And maybe you wouldn't have even imagined it 2 seasons ago when we did finish 7th, because that's the closest we've got to playoffs since 10 years ago. Let me know what you think of back in the day, who your favourite players were to watch in the 2016 season, because there were some crackers, especially with the likes of Mo Diarmi, Abel Hernandez, Tom Huddleston, Moses Odebajo. There's so many I could name, but then there's so many you can name now with the likes of Ollie McBurney, Joe Gelhardt, Regan Slater, Charlie Hughes. The list goes on. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check out the TikTok. Make sure to check out the Twitter. There'll be a link in the description. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Up the Tigers!